Welcome to our deep dive into product leadership.
Great to be here.
We're going to be pulling insights from two books by Roman Pichler,
Yeah.
How to Lead in Product Management and Strategize.
Uh-huh.
And you're probably here because you want to learn about leading teams.
Yeah.
Especially when you don't always have direct authority over those teams.
Right.
And making those tough decisions and just navigating the complexities of the product world.
Absolutely.
And we have an expert here to help us unpack all of this.
It's great to be here.
So glad to have you.
I think what's really interesting about Pichler's work
Yeah.
is that he really emphasizes the importance of soft skills for product managers.
Okay.
And he makes the argument that these are just as crucial as technical knowledge when it comes to leading a team to success.
So it's not enough to just understand agile methodologies or be able to build a roadmap.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's much more than that.
Got it.
He actually highlights 6 specific challenges that product leaders face. And many of these really center around navigating the human element of the job.
The human element.
Yeah, for example, you might be in a position where you are leading a team,
Uh-huh.
but you don't have transactional power.
Okay.
You're influencing them, you're not managing them directly.
And I can imagine that can be quite a challenge,
It is.
especially since product teams can be quite large and diverse.
Yes, they can.
I'm sure many of our listeners can relate to that feeling of trying to herd cats sometimes.
Absolutely. And on top of that, product leaders are often expected to contribute directly to the product's development
Okay.
while also leading others. So that can be a real balancing act.
Yeah, he actually points out that it's not uncommon for product people to manage teams of up to 10 people,
Wow.
which is a significantly larger span of control than typical line managers have.
That's right.
So,
And to illustrate just how important this human element is,
yeah.
Pichler quotes Gerald Weinberg,
Good.
who's a software development pioneer in his book. And Weinberg said, "No matter how it looks at first, it's always a people problem."
Wow.
That really drives home the point that strong people skills like empathy, communication, and conflict resolution are vital for product leaders.
Okay, so we're dealing with people problems.
Yes.
But these problems are happening across multiple levels of the organization, right?
Exactly. Pichler describes leadership as operating on 3 distinct levels:
Okay.
vision, strategy, and tactics.
So the vision being the overarching goal, the North Star for the product.
Yes.
The strategy is the plan for reaching that vision.
Uh-huh.
And the tactics are the specific actions you take to execute the strategy.
Precisely. But here's where things get interesting.
Okay.
Pichler emphasizes that these levels aren't static.
Okay.
Insights from the tactical level,
Okay.
like user feedback on a new feature, can actually impact the overall strategy
Oh,
and even the vision for the product.
so the product development process isn't a straight line from vision to tactics.
Yeah.
It's more dynamic than that.
Much more dynamic, exactly. Imagine your team is working on a new feature.
Okay.
That's your tactic.
Uh-huh.
During user testing, you uncover a need
Yeah.
that wasn't even considered in your initial strategy.
Wow.
This insight could lead you to adjust your approach or even tweak your overall vision for the product
Okay.
to align with what users actually want.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You need to be able to adapt to new information and be willing to change course when necessary.
Yes.
It sounds like Pichler is a big advocate for the growth mindset in this context.
He dedicates a lot of space in how to lead in product management to the importance of embracing a growth mindset.
Okay.
He argues that this mindset is crucial in such a fast-paced and constantly evolving field.
For our listeners who might not be familiar with the term, could you explain what a growth mindset is
Sure.
and why it's so important for product leaders?
A growth mindset is the belief that your abilities and intelligence aren't fixed.
Okay.
You can learn and grow through effort and experience. This is essential for product leaders because it means being open to new information, being willing to experiment, and most importantly, embracing failure as a learning opportunity.
And I think many of our listeners have probably experienced that firsthand,
Yeah.
having to pivot or even scrap a feature or product idea based on new information.
Absolutely.
I know I have. And it can be tough to let go of something you've invested time and energy in.
It can be. I remember leading a team developing a mobile app,
Okay.
and we were convinced that a particular feature would be a hit,
Uh-huh.
but user testing revealed that it was confusing and unnecessary.
Oh.
We had to make the difficult decision to cut it, even though we'd spent a lot of time on it.
I bet that wasn't an easy decision to make.
It wasn't, but it was the right decision, and that experience really solidified for me the importance of having a growth mindset.
Yeah.
Instead of getting discouraged, we took it as an opportunity to learn and improve.
Okay.
We pivoted changed our strategy based on that feedback and ended up creating a much better product because of it.
That's a great example of how a growth mindset can lead to positive outcomes even when things don't go as planned.
Yeah.
And it brings us to another crucial aspect of product leadership,
Yeah.
building and leading effective teams.
Absolutely. Pichler emphasizes the importance of creating a culture of empowerment and autonomy within teams.
Okay.
He suggests structuring teams around specific products or features which can help streamline decision-making and reduce dependencies.
I can see how that would encourage ownership and accountability within teams.
Yeah,
It's like creating mini companies within the larger organization.
exactly. He also mentions that leading self-organizing agile teams can present unique challenges.
Yes, and I imagine that ties back to what we were discussing earlier about leading without transactional power.
Uh-huh.
How do you guide and support a team that's empowered to make their own decisions?
That's where those soft skills become even more important.
Okay.
It's about providing clear goals and expectations, fostering open communication, and creating a safe space for experimentation and, yes, even failure.
It sounds like finding that balance between providing guidance and allowing teams the freedom to experiment is key to successful product leadership.
It is, and another critical aspect is fostering a culture of collaboration,
Okay.
not just within the team,
Yeah.
but across the organization.
So it's not enough for the product team to work well together.
No.
They need to be able to effectively collaborate with stakeholders, developers, and everyone else involved in the product development process.
Exactly. Pichler stresses the benefits of involving stakeholders and development teams in the decision-making process.
Okay.
He argues that this leads to better outcomes, stronger alignment, and increased motivation across the board.
And I imagine that can be challenging, especially when you have stakeholders with competing priorities or
Right.
different visions for the product.
Uh-huh.
How does Pichler suggest navigating those potentially tricky situations?
He provides a number of strategies,
Okay.
but one of the most important is mastering the art of listening.
Listening.
And he doesn't just mean passively hearing what people are saying. Okay. He breaks down listening into 4 levels,
Wow.
from ignoring to empathic listening, which he argues is the most valuable for product leaders.
And I'm guessing empathic listening goes beyond just hearing the words
It does.
and involves trying to understand the speaker's underlying needs and motivations.
Exactly. For example, a stakeholder might be pushing hard for a specific feature.
Uh-huh.
On the surface, it might seem like they're being stubborn or unreasonable,
Yeah.
but if you listen empathetically, you might uncover a deeper need, like a fear of losing market share or a desire to meet a specific business objective.
That's a great point. And once you understand those underlying needs, you can have a more productive conversation.
Yes.
And potentially find a solution that works for everyone.
Right. It might even be a better solution than the one the stakeholder was initially advocating for.
So we've talked about the importance of vision, strategy, and tactics,
Uh,
the need for a growth mindset, and the power of collaboration.
right.
It seems like these are all interconnected elements of effective product leadership.
Yeah.
But even with all of these things in place, I imagine conflict is still inevitable in product development.
It is, and Pichler doesn't shy away from that reality.
Okay.
He provides practical advice on how to navigate conflict constructively,
Okay.
drawing inspiration from the principles of nonviolent communication.
So we're not talking about avoiding conflict or pretending it doesn't exist.
Definitely not. It's about approaching conflict with a mindset of empathy and understanding,
Got it.
aiming for a win-win outcome. He outlines 4 steps to nonviolent communication:
Okay.
sharing observations, exploring feelings, expressing needs, and making requests.
Okay.
It's about focusing on needs rather than blame.
Can you give me an example of how this might play out in a real-world product development scenario?
Sure, imagine you're in a situation where a stakeholder insists on a feature
Okay.
that the development team believes is technically infeasible or would significantly delay the product's launch.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It could be, but instead of digging in their heels and arguing,
Yeah.
both sides can use nonviolent communication to find a solution.
Okay.
The stakeholder can express their need for the feature,
Yeah.
perhaps explaining the business rationale behind it.
Uh-huh.
The development team can share their observations about the technical challenges
Yeah.
or time constraints.
And by understanding each other's perspectives and needs, they can potentially find a compromise.
Exactly. Maybe they can find a simpler way to implement the feature
Okay.
or prioritize it for a future release. The key is to approach the situation with empathy and a genuine desire to find a solution that works for everyone.
It sounds like that approach could be helpful in all sorts of product development challenges,
Absolutely.
not just conflict resolution.
It can be. It's really about building strong relationships and fostering a culture of open communication.
Yeah, okay.
And this leads us to another crucial aspect of product leadership that Pitchler explores in detail in Strategize,
Okay.
developing and validating your product strategy.
Right, because even with the best team and communication strategies, you need a solid foundation for your product's development.
Exactly. And Pitchler argues that a product strategy is more than just a document.
Okay.
It's a living plan that needs to be tested and refined.
So we're not just talking about brainstorming in a conference room.
Okay.
We need to get out there and validate our assumptions in the real world.
Exactly. He advocates for an iterative, risk-driven approach to validation.
What does that look like in practice?
It starts with identifying the key assumptions underlying your strategy.
Okay.
This could include your target audience, their needs, and how your product will meet those needs. But it also includes things like the feasibility of the technology,
Okay.
the viability of the business model,
Yeah.
and even the ethical considerations of your product.
Wow, so it's a pretty comprehensive assessment.
It needs to be, you're essentially looking for potential weaknesses or risks
Okay.
that could derail your product's success.
And once you've identified those risks, what do?
You test them. This could involve talking to users, conducting market research, building prototypes, or even running small experiments. The key is to gather data
Okay.
that will either confirm or refute your assumptions.
And what happens if the data shows that your strategy is off track?
Then you need to be prepared to pivot.
Yeah.
It's not about being right.
Uh-huh.
It's about being open to being wrong and adjusting your course based on what you learn.
That reminds me of the saying, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Uh-huh.
Except in product development, that punch usually comes in the form of data or user feedback.
That's a great analogy. And to highlight this, Pitchler shares a personal anecdote in Strategize.
Okay.
He had an idea for a digital product, but through the validation process realized it wasn't as strong as he initially thought. He was forced to abandon the idea,
Wow.
but this led him to write the first edition of Strategize instead.
So his failure actually led to a new opportunity.
Exactly, and that's often the case in product development.
Yeah.
Embrace the learning process, even when it means changing course or letting go of a cherished idea.
It's about turning those punches in the face into valuable lessons.
Exactly, and once you've validated your product strategy,
Yeah.
you can start crafting a roadmap to guide its development.
Okay.
That's where the second part of Strategize comes in.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork with the product strategy,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's time to talk about the product roadmap.
Yes.
I know a lot of our listeners are probably eager to hear Pitchler's take on road mapping.
He has some interesting perspectives on it.
Okay.
He's not a fan of the traditional feature-based roadmap.
Okay.
Instead, he advocates for what he calls a goal-oriented roadmap.
What's the difference between a feature-based roadmap and a goal-oriented one?
Instead of listing specific features and deadlines, a goal-oriented roadmap focuses on desired outcomes.
Okay.
It's about defining the specific benefits your product should deliver,
Uh-huh.
the problems it should solve,
Yeah.
and the value it should create for users and the business.
So it's about the why behind the product development, not just the what.
Exactly. And this approach has several advantages.
Like being more flexible and adaptable to change.
You got it. A goal-oriented roadmap allows you to adjust your approach as you learn more
Uh-huh.
without feeling constrained by rigid feature lists and deadlines.
It sounds like a more strategic and less tactical approach to road mapping.
It is, and it helps to keep everyone aligned on the overall product strategy.
Okay.
The roadmap becomes a constant reminder of the goals you're working towards,
Yeah.
not just the features you're building.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
But even with a goal-oriented roadmap, you still need to make tough choices about what to prioritize.
That's true.
How does Pitchler recommend approaching prioritization?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And one we'll explore in detail in the next part of this deep dive.
We'll be right back after a short break to continue unpacking the key concepts and practical tips from both of Roman Pitchler's books. Stay tuned for more insights into the world of product leadership. We're back and ready to dive into the art of prioritizing those goals on a product roadmap.
Okay.
And I'm particularly interested in the concept that Pitchler introduces in Strategize,
Yeah.
the cost of delay.
Uh-huh.
Could you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, it's a simple but powerful idea. Instead of focusing solely on the benefits of achieving a goal,
Okay.
you also consider the negative impact of not addressing it right now.
So it's not just about The potential upside, but also the potential downside of pushing something back.
Exactly. Let's say you have two goals on your roadmap.
Okay.
One is improving the onboarding process for new users, and
Right.
the other is adding a new feature that's been requested by your loyal customers.
Okay.
Both are important, but which one should you prioritize?
I can already see where this is going. A clunky onboarding process could cause you to lose new users before they even experience the value of your product.
Right, the cost of delaying onboarding improvements is potentially huge.
Yeah.
You might lose those users to a competitor with a smoother onboarding experience.
Okay.
Whereas delaying the new feature, while maybe frustrating for your loyal customers,
Yeah.
is unlikely to cause them to churn.
So even though both goals are valuable, the cost of delay helps you understand which one is more time sensitive.
Precisely, and sometimes the cost of delay isn't easily quantifiable in dollars and cents.
Okay.
It could be about brand reputation or missing a strategic opportunity.
It seems like this framework could be useful not just for product roadmaps, but for any kind of prioritization decision making.
Absolutely. It forces you to think beyond the immediate benefits and consider the broader implications of your choices.
Now, I know another concept Pichler emphasizes is the importance of balancing product goals, dates, and costs.
Right.
It's something that I'm sure many of our listeners grapple with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
How do you suggest navigating that tricky triangle?
Pichler acknowledges that you can't have it all.
Okay.
You need to make trade-offs.
Great.
He introduces the concept of the primary success factor to guide those decisions.
So what exactly is a primary success factor?
It's the single most important element for your product's success at a given moment.
Okay.
It might be launching on time,
Ah.
staying within budget,
Yeah.
or delivering a specific set of features.
So it's like identifying the North Star for your roadmap, the guiding principle that informs all other decisions.
Precisely. Once you've identified your primary success factor, other decisions become easier.
Yep.
If your primary goal is to launch on time, you might be willing to cut features
Uh-huh.
or increase the budget to hit that deadline.
Okay.
But if the priority is staying within budget,
Yeah.
you might delay the launch or scale back the product's scope.
That's a really helpful way to frame it. It's about being clear on what matters most right now
Yes.
and making strategic choices accordingly.
And Pichler also introduces the concept of the secondary success factor,
Okay.
which acts as a kind of backup guiding principle.
So you have a plan B if circumstances change or if your primary success factor needs to shift.
Exactly. By identifying both your primary and secondary success factors, you create a hierarchy for decision making.
This is making me realize how important it is for the product roadmap to be a truly strategic document.
Yes.
Not just a list of features and deadlines. It's about setting a direction for the product's development.
Yes, and Pichler even argues that a roadmap shouldn't be set in stone.
Okay.
It's a living document that needs to evolve as you learn and as conditions change.
Got it.
He uses the idea of fixed versus changing success factors to highlight this.
So even our North Star might need to shift from time to time.
Exactly. What's crucial for your product today might not be as critical 6 months from now.
Okay.
Your primary success factor might evolve as the product matures,
Got
as
it.
the market changes, or as you gain new insights about your users.
So flexibility and adaptability are key.
They are.
But how do you ensure that your roadmap is responsive to those changes without becoming chaotic?
This is where collaboration comes in.
Okay. Pichler emphasizes that creating a successful roadmap is a team effort.
Okay.
Stakeholders, development teams, and anyone else invested in the product's success should be involved.
I'm sensing a recurring theme here.
Uh-huh.
But it makes sense. All those different perspectives can contribute valuable insights.
And by involving them in the process,
Yeah.
you create buy-in and shared ownership, which makes it easier to adapt the roadmap as needed.
I know Pichler's a big proponent of using collaborative workshops for road mapping.
He is.
What are some key elements that make those workshops effective?
He dedicates a whole chapter to that in Strategize.
Okay.
He recommends setting clear ground rules,
Uh-huh.
using techniques like dot voting to reach consensus,
Okay.
and importantly, documenting decisions.
It's about creating an environment where everyone feels comfortable sharing their ideas
Yes,
and where there's a clear process for making decisions.
exactly. And once you have a roadmap,
Yeah.
you need to connect it to the product backlog. Ah, yes. The product backlog, that ever-growing list of features, bug fixes, and improvements. It's where the rubber meets the road.
But it's crucial to remember that the roadmap and the backlog are different.
Okay.
The roadmap is strategic,
Uh-huh.
while the backlog is tactical.
Okay.
The roadmap defines the why and the what,
Yeah.
while the backlog details the how.
So the roadmap sets the overall direction, while the backlog outlines the steps to get there.
Precisely, and those two documents need to be in sync.
Okay.
The goals on your roadmap should inform the prioritization of items in your backlog, and as you make progress, the backlog should reflect those changes.
It's a constant feedback loop between strategy and execution.
Exactly, and that loop is vital for ensuring you're delivering value to users and achieving your business objectives.
Speaking of delivering value, how does Pishler suggest tracking progress and measuring the success of a roadmap?
He emphasizes regular reviews.
Okay.
It's not just about checking off completed goals, but ensuring the roadmap is still aligned with the product strategy and any shifts in the market.
So it's not a static document that you create and then forget about?
Not at all. Pishler recommends holding roadmap reviews regularly,
Okay.
involving stakeholders and being open to adapting the roadmap as needed.
So flexibility and adaptability are key. I'm noticing a pattern here.
They are essential in product leadership.
Okay.
He offers advice on conducting these reviews,
Uh-huh.
from identifying key metrics to facilitating discussions and making decisions about potential adjustments.
And I know he outlines 4 possible outcomes for each goal on the roadmap during these reviews.
Yes.
Continue, adapt, pause, or kill. Could you elaborate on each of those a bit?
Of course, continue means you're on track and making good progress.
Okay.
Adapt means adjusting the approach or timeline based on what you've learned.
And pause would be for putting a goal on hold, perhaps because priorities have shifted.
Right. And kill means abandoning the goal altogether.
Oh, wow.
It sounds drastic, but sometimes it's the best decision for the product's success.
It's about being ruthless with prioritization
Yeah.
and focusing on what truly matters.
Yes, and Pishler stresses these decisions should be collaborative.
Okay.
Involve the key stakeholders and the development team.
Yeah.
Have open and honest conversations and ensure everyone is on the same page about the best path forward.
It all goes back to collaboration.
It does.
But what about when you have to lead without direct authority,
Right.
as is often the case for product managers?
Right.
How do you influence and persuade stakeholders when you can't simply dictate decisions?
That's a great question, and it's a topic we'll delve into in the final part of this deep dive.
Stay with us as we continue exploring Roman Pishler's insights and uncover the secrets of leading effectively in the world of product development. Welcome back to our deep dive into product leadership. We've covered a lot of ground, from the importance of a growth mindset to the art of validating your product strategy. But there's one more crucial topic I want to explore: leading without authority. It's a challenge I know many of our listeners face regularly.
It's definitely a reality for many product managers.
Yeah.
You're often responsible for guiding and influencing people who don't report directly to you. But as Pishler points out in How to Lead in Product Management, this isn't necessarily a disadvantage. It just requires a different approach, one that emphasizes influence, persuasion, and collaboration.
So instead of relying on our job title or hierarchical power, we need to find other ways to motivate and inspire people.
Exactly. And one of the most important things you can do is build trust. People are more likely to follow someone they trust and respect, regardless of their position in the organization.
I can see how trust is particularly crucial in those situations where you don't have formal authority.
Absolutely. Pishler stresses that trust isn't something you can demand, it's something you earn over time through consistent actions and behaviors.
Okay.
He recommends being transparent in your communication, following through on commitments, and acknowledging the contributions of others.
So it's about being reliable, authentic, and genuinely caring about the people you work with. It sounds like building strong relationships is key here.
It is. Strong relationships are the foundation of effective leadership, especially when you lack formal authority.
But building trust is just one piece of the puzzle. What other strategies does Pishler suggest for leading without authority?
Another important strategy is becoming a master of persuasion. But like I mentioned earlier, we're not talking about manipulation or coercion.
Right.
It's about effectively communicating your vision, your strategy, and the reasons behind your decisions in a way that resonates with people.
So it's about being a clear and compelling communicator. Are there any specific techniques that Pishler recommends for achieving that?
He suggests using storytelling, data, and examples to illustrate your points and make your case more persuasive.
Okay.
It's about painting a picture of the future you want to create and inviting people to join you on that journey.
I could see how that would be more engaging and inspiring than simply presenting a list of features or tasks.
It is. And he also stresses the importance of framing your ideas in a way that aligns with your audience's values and motivations.
Okay.
This requires empathy, active listening, and a willingness to see things from their perspective.
So it's not just about what you say, but how you say it and how well it connects with the people you're trying to influence.
Exactly. The more you understand your stakeholders' needs, the more effectively you can communicate with them and persuade them to support your vision.
This all makes sense in theory. But what about those situations where there's disagreement or conflict? How can you lead effectively when you can't simply dictate a solution?
This is where collaboration becomes even more critical. Pichler advocates for involving stakeholders in the decision-making process, even when you ultimately have the final say. It's about creating a sense of shared ownership and responsibility.
So even though you might not be able to force a decision, you can still guide the process and ensure that all voices are heard.
Exactly. And he provides some concrete strategies for facilitating collaborative decision-making.
Okay.
These include setting clear ground rules at the outset, using techniques like dot voting to reach consensus, and thoroughly documenting the decisions made.
It sounds like it's all about creating an environment where everyone feels heard and respected, even if they don't get their way on every issue.
That's a great way to put it. By involving stakeholders in the process, you're more likely to come up with solutions that everyone can support, even if it involves compromise.
So to recap, leading without authority is about building trust, mastering persuasion, and embracing collaboration. It's a different style of leadership, but it can be just as effective, if not more so, than traditional top-down approaches.
I agree. And when we connect this to the broader trends in leadership, I think Pichler's work reflects an important shift. It's not enough to simply tell people what to do anymore.
Right.
It's more about inspiring them, empowering them, and collaborating with them to achieve a shared goal.
Precisely. And this is particularly true in the world of product development, which is so fast-paced and dynamic.
Yes.
So what's the key takeaway for our listeners who are looking to apply these insights to their own work as product leaders?
I think a powerful thought for them to consider is this. Pichler talks about listening for needs when it comes to stakeholders. How can they apply that same concept to the users they serve?
Oh.
How can they go beyond surface-level feedback and truly understand the underlying needs and motivations that drive user behavior?
That's a great challenge to leave our listeners with. After all, the ultimate goal of product leadership is to create products that solve real problems and deliver value to users.
Exactly. And that requires a deep understanding of those users and their needs.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of product leadership. We hope you found it insightful and informative.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, remember that the journey of learning never ends. Keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep striving to be the best product leader you can be.